now our post-NFL season of 5 Minutes at the Frat House with Frat House Mike and Sidekick. And, it occurred to me when I say post-NFL season, when you think about it, since our whole season started, that's all we've talked, really, has been the NFL.
Right.
We're going to talk some NFL again tonight, but this will probably be, well, I say that now. We'll see. There'll be stories that'll come up. But we'll talk a little NFL, but that's kind of in the post-mortem respect of it. We'll be talking some NFL. But, yeah, now we're going to start jumping into a whole bunch of other sports as we start moving forward over the next number of weeks. And I don't know if you gave this any thought at all, but, and I think you did bring it up, actually, pre-show. This is our 75th consecutive show. 75th consecutive, 75 weeks in a row. And wow, now it's just a matter of us counting down to 100, which really isn't all that far away. That's just a couple of weeks away when you start to think about it. But let's go over.
We'll probably be talking preseason football about that time.
Yes, we would be. Exactly right. In fact, I actually, yeah, that's the kind of guy I am. I actually did map out when would 25 weeks from now be. Hey, but let's go over and let's talk a little NFL football because we just came off the really big game this past Sunday. The 47th playing of the Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens going up against the San Francisco 49ers. And for the most part, I thought it was a very entertaining. I thought it was quite a good game, Sidekick. What was your overall impression of the game? Without necessarily getting into anything specific, what was your overall impression of it? I thought it was a good game.
I thought it was a great game. It was back and forth. You had comebacks. And that it was. I thought it was one of the better Super Bowls in recent years.
I agree.
It was competitive.
I wouldn't say it was the best, but I thought it was one of the better ones. I mean, it certainly kept our attention, and I don't know how you could have sat if you're a sports fan, if you're a football fan. I don't know how it wouldn't have kept your attention.
Yep. I could have done without the Calvin Klein ad, or it being played 5 or 6 times.
True enough.
But
or the GoDaddy commercial.
Yeah, that was a little disturbing.
But I'll tell you what. Before we jump into let's start breaking it down into some more specifics before we get into more conversation. And let's break down the game a little bit, just to fulfill my need to feed my stats addiction, ultimately, the Ravens held on late into the fourth quarter. They held on late into the fourth quarter to win their second Super Bowl. Their first in 12 years by just a field goal. They won it 34-31. So much talk after the fact of Joe Flacco, who went 22 of 33, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 124.2 QB rating. 2 other big stars, though, for the Ravens, you have to point out, had to be Anquan Boldin with 6 receptions, 104 yards, and a touchdown. And, of course, we can't miss out on Jacoby Jones, who had 5 kick returns for 206 yards. But the biggest of those was the 108-yard return for a touchdown at the very beginning of the second half.
Yep.
Now, 108
yards. Tied an NFL record.
It was tied, or I thought I had heard during the game, I said, is that a record? It tied it, or was the record 109?
The record was 108.
Okay.
They initially gave him credit for 109
okay.
on the kickoff return, and then they came back and said it's only 108, which tied the record.
Okay. It was thrilling. It truly was a thrilling opening of the second half. And that TD at that particular time put the Ravens up 28-6. And it really looked like at that particular time, like the 49ers had just had their lights put out.
Yep, literally.
And that's exactly what happened, because it was shortly after Jones's kickoff return that 34-minute power outage at the Superdome in New Orleans.
Insert any number of jokes at this stage.
Oh my goodness!
Twitter was.
No one has given anybody a clear, satisfactory answer as to what exactly occurred at that point. You've heard so many different things, that it was the halftime show with Beyonce, but then I heard, well, no, they brought in their own generators, their own power supply, so it had nothing to do with that. No one's given a satisfactory answer as to what happened, but I remember sitting here, and, I think for the average fan, I don't think we really cared, did we? Did anybody really? Although I thought it was kind of a black eye on New Orleans.
Well, it did get a little boring.
Yeah.
I mean, for half an hour I was on Twitter, and I was just reading out Twitter jokes,
Right.
And that was funny, but I really would have liked getting back to the game.
Yeah.
And I think that blackout helped San Francisco get back in the game, because up to that point, once the power came back on and they played, Baltimore's offense and the Niners' defense had not been on the field together for 70 minutes, which which obviously allowed San Francisco.
I think it was over 80 when they somebody.
So you had the opportunity for San Francisco's defense to rest, and it gave time for Flacco and Baltimore's offense to kind of tighten up and that. So, and I think that's what you saw happen then, because San Francisco came out of the gate and just they were stopping Baltimore, and Kaepernick was just firing off.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm glad you brought that up, that very fact, because many have contended that the power outage actually benefited the 49ers. I, for one, on Fan Junkies Radio on Monday, said I didn't think it really would have made any difference, and I'll get into that in one moment. But once the power did ultimately come back, as Sidekick just pointed out, San Francisco proceeded to run up 17 unanswered points and made it a game by the end of the third quarter, 28-23. Now, when you take a look at the 49ers game, really, they had a much more balanced offensive attack. 286 yards passing, 182 yards on the ground. However, only 62 yards rushing for Kaepernick. And I guess my question to you, let me throw it at you real quick here. My question to you with regard to Kaepernick, had he run more, would that have made any difference in this game at all, do you think?
But we talked about it, in our analysis of, pre-Super Bowl.
Yep.
And that's always an X factor.
Yep.
I don't know if involving, getting him on more designated run plays would have opened up their offense anymore or not. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, they are designated run plays for him, and then sometimes it's just busted plays where he takes off.
Right.
So
yes.
Now, granted, I think Baltimore's defense came in looking at that and kept him from having those breakdown play scrambles. We didn't see a lot of that. So, and then we saw some runs in the second half, which makes me think that they started putting some designated runs in there.
What you make, and I'm going to throw this in. Boy, you're leading me right into all my observations here.
Well, that's
two that I know. You're thinking, read my mind. Two observations that I want to make about this particular game. Two things that kind of jumped out to me. Not only as I was watching the game, but even there after the fact on Monday as I was doing the analysis and looking through the box scores and what have you in preparation for Fan Junkies Radio. With all the talk of the defenses on both teams, how good these two defenses were on both teams, I was generally unimpressed with both of them. That's number one. And the second big stat that jumped out to me and jumped off the page when I was looking and analyzing this game, third down conversions. 9 of 16 for the Ravens, 2 of 9 for the 49ers. Now, when you talk about the defense and you talk about Kaepernick, I don't know what your sense was. I don't know if you came away with the same kind of feeling I did where you were, I'm not saying they were bad. I just expected more from both defenses. I think Kaepernick could have run the ball a little more effectively, particularly in the first half. And I think that was a missed opportunity because I didn't think that the defense was playing quite as well.
And I think they could have run it a little bit more in the first half, or with Kaepernick running it in the first half. And I thought there'd be more from the defenses as well. But that could also be could have been a kind of mutual respect kind of thing, between the two defenses, because these were two heavy, hard-hitting defenses.
Right.
And I was surprised there was not more hard hits and that. So, like you said, I was a little bit, I don't know if I'd use the word unimpressed, but maybe a little bit surprised that the defenses weren't as big a role in the game. Well, okay, let me back up. Baltimore's in the first half, specifically in the first quarter, I thought was excellent because they were handling the Niners offense.
Okay.
I mean, the first drive they were in negative yards. So I think at the first quarter, I think the Ravens defense did play up to par.
Okay.
But I think overall, looking back at the games, both defenses,
2 words. Ray Lewis's play. Give me 2 words.
To be honest, I sat here with my Ray Lewis jersey. You didn't even know the guy was in the game.
He had a whopping total of 7 tackles.
Yep.
Okay, 4 of them solo. That was it. I think a lot of us were looking that as Ray Lewis went, that's how that defense was going to go. Mm-hmm. And as we saw, Lewis was really not a part of it, and that's where I think a lot of people came away saying unimpressed with the Baltimore defense. Not unimpressed again. Not saying that they were bad, just not what we expected them to be.
Right.
I think the other big difference.
But you know who stepped up though? Ellerby.
Yes.
I believe. I think it's Ellerby.
Yes. Well, and Reed with his interception.
Yes, Reed's interception, but I think because you were constantly hearing about Ellerby stuffing the run, and so I think he stepped up, and he was the guy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying either defenses were horrible or were bad. No, they weren't. But I don't think a 34-31 score is what we expected from 2 of the stellar defenses in the NFL.
There's something screwy around here.
I think that 3rd down conversion, though, was telling, too, as well. I mean, when you've got a team going 9 of 16 and the other side's going 2 of 9, that's a telltale sign right there that something wasn't quite right with the 49ers offense, particularly early on.
All right.
Anyhow, from here at the Frat House, we want to send congratulations out to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
As I pointed out, their 2nd Super Bowl in 12 years. And specifically to congratulations to their fans, who I know are very, very happy down there in the Baltimore area.
I give you our champion!
There you have it. Now, before we leave the NFL for this season, Sidekick, you and I kind of called it here last week a little bit, as we kind of insinuated that, Joe Flacco might just be MVP. And sure enough, Joe Flacco got MVP for the Super Bowl. I guess, is it MVP for the playoff season, or is it just for the Super Bowl? It's for the season. Okay, for the playoff season. For the Super Bowl. Okay.
Yep.
But that didn't come as a surprise to me, and I don't think it came as a surprise to anybody else, as I just had listed his stats. No interceptions, what have you. And I think that the whole no interception thing had a lot to do with the decision on that. I think that was a big determinant. However, in the past few days, we've been hearing a word thrown around that I got to get your feel on, and that word is elite. Suddenly, Joe Flacco is being propelled and elevated up to the elite status. This was something
awesome. How far you've come.
This is something I don't know if I brought it up last week or not, but I know that I brought it up recently. This was something that Eli Manning was saying at the beginning of last season. He was self-proclaiming himself as being, he thought he was an elite quarterback. And that was before he had won his 2nd Super Bowl at the end of last season.
Well, let me stop you there.
Go ahead.
There's a little bit of a difference between the media and the fans proclaiming someone to be elite or trying to give that tag, and someone proclaiming that they are elite.
Okay, I got you there.
LeBron James, Eli Manning.
yeah, right. I got you. Chris Bosh, as Jonathan and I talked about on Fan Junkies Radio. No, I understand what you're saying. And so therefore, okay, good. I'll discount that one a little bit. But let's hang the elite tag for a moment on Joe Flacco. Really? Is this an elite quarterback? Seriously?
Well, that's always a great debate topic. What constitute elite? Is it the number of, is it Super Bowl wins? Is it stats during the season? You have quarterbacks like Dan Marino.
Is that elite?
Is Dan Marino considered elite? He has no Super Bowls. But when you talk about elite quarterbacks, some people put Dan Marino in there. So it's really subjective.
So this is very, very subjective. I was going to say, okay, so this is a very subjective thing.
So
when we're hearing the word elite being thrown around in the media, we should discount it. We should discount it because it's subjective. That might be that one talk show person or that one anchor person making that statement, and not generally what.
Sure, because I'm sure if you ask any Baltimore Ravens, a majority of Baltimore Ravens fans, if they think Joe Flacco's elite, they're going to tell you he's elite.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know. I think if you got analytical Baltimore fans, they might step back and say, well, no, he's a very good quarterback, and we'll take what we got. But elite is a characterization reserved for. Go ahead.
If you walk down the streets in Baltimore,
yes,
and you ask the
they're going to be running high right now, obviously.
And that's what I mean by that. If you ask the average Joe fan, I think you'll find a majority of their fan base is going to say he's elite. There's always going to be people that are critical.
Okay, let me ask you a question. What do you say?
I do not believe we've seen enough for me to put him in the elite category yet. But here's where I will throw elite in. His performance during the playoffs this year was an elite performance.
Stellar.
I'm not ready.
How about
to
stellar.
I would call it elite.
I'm going to cut hairs here. How about saying?
I would call his performance during this year's playoffs as elite. Not the season, the playoffs. Okay, can you hang the elite franchise tag on him? Yes.
But you certainly can't hang an elite career.
But
tag.
I'm not going to hang. I'm not going to put his picture up next to Tom Brady
or Joe Montana
or John Elway,
right?
Or any of those guys yet.
Okay.
I'm kind of on the fence, honestly, about elite or Eli Manning. Even though he's got 2 rings. Even though he's got 2 rings. He's got 2 rings, but I'm not totally bought into him being elite. Yes, he's knocked off Tom Brady twice. Okay, who is elite? But I'm not ready. I think he's on the cusp.
Okay, so Tom Brady is elite.
I will say Tom Brady is an elite quarterback.
Tom Brady is an active
pains me to say that.
Quarterback. Peyton Manning, is he elite?
I believe
one Super Bowl.
I believe Peyton Manning is elite.
Peyton Manning is an active elite quarterback. Are there any others that are active right now in the NFL? Aaron Rodgers.
You know what? I would put the bar at Aaron Rodgers.
If it's not it's not right there, it's darn close.
I think he's at the bottom. That's where the bar is. Anybody else?
If you put the bar there, then why aren't you throwing Eli in there with 2 Super Bowls?
Good question. I think from a stats, and I don't have stats in front of me. I can't sit there and rip them off. But my personal opinion.
I know it's a gut, isn't it? It's a gut.
Gut feeling is that I think Aaron Rodgers has been more consistent and shown more poise as a quarterback than Eli. I think Eli's just a little bit inconsistent at times. When the years they went to the Super Bowl, he was spot on. The years in between the Super Bowls and stuff, he's not been that good. Okay. Aaron Rodgers, he may have a slow start to a season, but that guy, consistent every season. By the end of the season, his numbers are consistent.
Flacco wins a second Super Bowl. Elite?
I still put him with Eli Manning. I need to see I need to see a little bit more consistency out of him. Now, if he rides this wave that he had in his playoffs and he starts playing next season at a similar level, I'm not saying he has to have the no interceptions, but I think if he starts playing at the same level, then I think you can start saying elite. I think he's working his way towards that.
It's no secret that I've never been a big Joe Flacco fan. That's not to say that I think he's a bad quarterback. That's not to say that I think that I just generally don't like him. That's not it at all.
You're
it's
just
that
a little critical.
I think he's been overrated. That's where I come down on it. If Joe Flacco wins a second Super Bowl, that's when I'm going to be sitting up. That's when I'm going to say, okay, maybe this guy is truly something special.
So that will change your mind then about Flacco, and
it would.
You'd be willing to at least partake in that conversation.
I would be willing to at least stop being as critical. Let's put it that way. Yes. I mean, at that point, look. At that point, then you really can't say that he's overrated. So I really don't have an argument any longer, because if my argument is that he's overrated, then I can't make that argument any longer. Not realistically.
Yeah. See,
and that's where I come down on it, folks. I really do try to be very, very objective, and I recognize what my argument is. I say Joe Flacco was a very, very, very good quarterback this postseason. He was very good, and so therefore I give him a lot of credit. Do it again. Now you'll hear a different Frat House Mike talking about Joe Flacco.
But you'll never talk about Andy Dalton like that, ever.
Andy Dalton better start doing something in order for me to talk about him at all. Before we jump completely off,
beautiful hair.
No, he doesn't. Let's jump over real quick right now. Before we leave football completely, we're going to jump over to our Frat House Facebook post of the week, and it was our most viewed post of the week over on our Frat House page. It got literally, I think it got hundreds of views. And it might be our last NFL one for a little while over there. It was a poll question that I put up and posed just 2 hours before the kickoff of the Super Bowl, asking who people were rooting for. And, some of our more creative fans, they added responses to my responses. The Puppy Bowl.
Who voted for National Cheesecake Day?
The Puppy Bowl, MLB season to begin, and National Cheesecake Day. So I got to give it to some of our fans out there, albeit I'm glad that they didn't identify themselves, because I might just have to ban you from the Frat House page for wanting the Cheesecake Day over the Super Bowl, because then you're not a real sports fan.
But interestingly, though, the Niners had the most.
I know. I found that a little bit interesting too. Although many people saw it, but not too many people participated. You got to participate in those things when I throw them up there, folks. Okay, listen. I just mentioned MLB, Major League Baseball. Somebody mentioned that the Major League Baseball season's to begin. It's a funny thing. The Super Bowl gets done. We're no sooner done with the Super Bowl on Monday, okay, the day after the Super Bowl, and suddenly everybody in sports, what are we turning our attention to? We're turning our attention to the South.
The one constant through all the years has been baseball.
And so we're turning to spring training, okay? And so let me bring you our countdown. Where are we at this point right now? Hey, how about 4 days to the opening of spring training, 15 days to exhibition games, and just 51 days to the season opener. And it sounds like a lot, but those days are going to fly. So listen,
I can't wait.
I would do yourselves a favor. Don't be thinking about pending snowstorms or anticipated blizzards or threats of blizzards. Just turn your thoughts to the summer warmth of baseball. Turn to that.
Drop by my office.
Yeah, and we'll be hearing that guy shortly. Okay. Listen, now before we get to the beginning of the baseball season, however, we got to get through one of my favorite times of the year. 3 weeks from now, you didn't roll your eyes. You didn't roll. Okay. 3 weeks from now, we're going to be taking a look, and we're going to be watching the NCAA basketball conference tournaments. And then 5 weeks from now, which would just be 2 weeks after that, we'll be into the brackets. You going to be into the brackets? You're going to get in the brackets? You're going to get in the brackets.
And
the NCAA tournament. And listen, when I say get into the brackets, we run a bracket kind of fantasy challenge thing here at the Frat House. And everybody is invited to join in on that.
Yep.
And in order to do so, you got to be over on our Frat House page, on our Facebook page, and be tuning into that over the next couple of weeks, and you'll be getting the notifications about it. But you gotta like the Frat House Facebook page, and then you'll get the announcements about it.
Yep.
But in the meantime,
and you can watch Sidekick sit at the bottom as he does every year.
Don't be crying for him, because listen, NASCAR's coming. All right, NASCAR's coming. All right. In the meantime, I thought what we might do is we'll start taking a look at what the rankings are right now in the NCAA. These are the rankings as we know them as of right now. These were updated just 3 days ago. And sitting atop at number 1, we've got Indiana, who took over. Yes, they took over the number 1 spot from Michigan last week, who was number 1, and they dropped down. Michigan dropped down to number 3. Number 2, we've got Florida. Number 4 are my Duke Blue Devils. Number 5, Kansas. Gonzaga hangs in the top 10, and they've pretty much been there really almost all season long. They're there at number 6. Look at Miami right now, jumping all the way up to number 8 from number 14, and OSU makes the top 10 as well. Interestingly, when you take a look at it, missing notables from this list. No North Carolina, no Kentucky, locally, no Villanova, no Temple. All right. So interesting things that could happen. Some of those, of course, hey, if they get lucky and win their conference tournament later on this month, well, then they'd get an automatic bye. But for the moment right now, none of those guys are on the list and probably wouldn't be going to the big dance. Teams that are in the top 25, though, interesting ones that were not ranked last week that actually made the list this week. Georgetown coming in at number 20. They were not ranked last week. Oklahoma State ranked currently number 22. Pittsburgh, this is their time of year. They're always coming on strong right at the end of the season, ranked number 23. They weren't ranked last week. And Notre Dame right now is coming in at number 25.
I was just going to say, and your favorite university, the University of Notre Dame, they're 25.
Number 25 they are, yes.
Yep.
Notre Dame will probably make the, I would think would make the tourney. Absolutely. Okay, and we'll be bringing you the leaderboard as we go through the next couple of weeks right up until bracket time. All right? Let's stick on round ball. Let's stick on round ball, and let's stick with leaderboards, and let's go take a look at what's going on over in the NBA. And let me see if I can get that up there. Okay. Let's go over and take a look
That's what she said.
Let's go over and take a look at the NBA, as we did last week. Over in the Atlantic Division, we've got the New York Knicks leading the Atlantic Division, 31-16. They are now 3 games in front of the Brooklyn Nets. Had a slightly better week this week. They are 7-3 in their last 10. In the Central Division, that's been going back and forth over the past couple of weeks as we've looked at it. The Indiana Pacers are now ahead of the Chicago Bulls again. 7-3 in their last 10. They're 1 game ahead of the Chicago Bulls. In the Southwest, go ahead.
And they're 20-3 at home. Another good home team.
Absolutely, yeah. And, that's really what's been holding them up. That's, I've been saying all year long, all season long, that I've been surprised at Indiana, and what's really been, pushing them has been their home record. Good point. In the Southeast, Miami continues to lead over there. They are now 6 games ahead of the Atlanta Hawks. Is anybody really surprised? 8-2 in their last 10. Northwest, nothing's changed over in the Western Conference. In the Northwest, Oklahoma City, 37-12, 6 games in front of the Denver Nuggets. The LA Clippers, however, are starting to show a little bit of weakness. 3-7 in their last 10. Jonathan and I have been talking about them, thinking that, wow, what a tremendous LA Clippers team. Golden State, however, kind of faltered as well. They weren't able to make up any ground as the Clippers were losing. Right now, the Clippers are still 4 games ahead of Golden State. San Antonio is absolutely destroying anything in their path. They are 10-0 in their last 10. 8 games in front of the Memphis Grizzlies.
And they've got an 11-game win streak. Holy cow.
They are absolutely anything in their way, they're just getting rid of. All right. Let's go take a look at what's going on ponds around the NHL league. You want to do that? You want to take a look at some ponds?
Oh, joy.
Do that?
I can't
Look,
wait.
I saw a little chink in your armor today on Facebook. Page.
Come on.
Okay.
We're talking about,
Okay. Game is tonight.
There are a few things that are my kryptonite that I cannot stay away from. Memes about the Red Wings.
Uh-huh.
Memes about the Cubs.
Uh-huh.
And anything about Tony Romo.
Okay, well.
So I had to crack.
That game is tonight. And you're telling me that once we're finished here, if I put that game on, you wouldn't sit and watch even 5 minutes of it?
Nope. The best you're getting out of me is a meme.
You're mean. You know that. You know you're just mean. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on over in the NHL. And we've had quite a few division changes just this week. Well, let me go over and take a look at it. And I think you can expect to see a lot of division changes, particularly in this shortened season. We're going to see this, I think, over the next couple of weeks. Over in the Atlantic Division. Let me get my list up. Okay, over in the Atlantic Division, yes, we did have a change. The Pittsburgh Penguins right now are leading that division. They are 1 point ahead of the Jersey Devils with a 7-3-0 record. In the Northeast Division, the Boston Bruins, 7-1-1, 2 points ahead of the Ottawa Senators. In the Southeast, Tampa Bay Lightning continue to lead there, 3 points ahead of the Winnipeg Jets. The Chicago Blackhawks, kind of like the San Antonio Spurs, wouldn't say they're quite that, but haven't lost a game yet this season. 8-0-2, 6 points ahead of the St. Louis Blues, who happen to be playing the Detroit Red Wings tonight.
Yep. National Punch Your Red Wings Fan Day.
There you go.
So how long till the Stanley Cup?
How could you go and punch one when you don't even watch the game yourself? That's a fraud. That's a fraud.
I was just going to ask you how long till the Stanley Cup, but then that's right. I don't care.
It's actually I gave those dates a couple of weeks ago, and you weren't listening. You had your fingers in your ears.
There you go.
Over in the Northwest Division, we do have
we're not done.
We have a league. We had a division change over there. The Vancouver Canucks now are leading that. They're 1 point ahead of the Edmonton Oilers.
Thought we were done.
And surprise, surprise, surprise. I don't think you can expect this. Don't expect this to stay the same. Over in the Pacific Division, the Anaheim Ducks right now lead the, or actually they're tied. They are tied right now with the San Jose Sharks. But right now, the Anaheim Ducks have the tiebreaker in that. So they're technically ahead of the San Jose Sharks in the Pacific Division. And again, I think next week when we come back to it, or when I come back to it, and when I report on it, because this guy won't say anything, or if he does, it'll just be, sarcastic.
So hey, actually,
I'm sure you'll see those.
Did you hear that Greg Williams got reinstated today?
Yes, I did.
And picked up by the Titans.
Yes, I did. I did hear that. How do you feel about that? Because you made a comment on the Facebook page about it.
Yeah. Very good for the Titans.
All right.
Business about to pick up.
What kind of business? The money changing business.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's our show for this week. Let's run around real quick. Fan Junkies. Get over to Fan Junkies, social media, where sports meets social media. Sign up completely free. Jump into their chat rooms. Jonathan's got chat rooms open all the time for all the different hockey games, and there's probably a couple open there right now. Fan Junkies Radio. My gosh, it's been really a lot of fun this week. We're doing an entire MLB preseason week this week. We had Eric Valent from the former Phillies and former Met on Monday. Tomorrow we got Kelly Stinnett, former player, catcher, on tomorrow. We had a roundtable yesterday on Wednesday. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have an entire NASCAR week. Every day there'll be another NASCAR guest on in preparation for the Daytona 500. Fan Junkies Radio, check that out. It's going big. Almost 250,000 listeners so far. HerbFMSports.com. We're generally getting rebroadcast usually around 7 o'clock on Friday nights right now. This show, 5 minutes at the Frat House. And Chris down there in Baltimore has been running our shows 2 and 3 at a time. So he might run like this one, he might run last week's, he might run the week before. And he's running them like 2 and 3 of them at a time. So you'll get a full hour out, sometimes an hour and a half. You got to check their schedule. It's herbfm.com. CLW83. You can pick up the rebroadcast of 5 minutes at the Frat House that I do on Saturday over on Fan Junkies Radio. And then last but not least, Frat House Sports. I just put up a couple of new articles just this week. One of them, in fact, just on Major League Baseball. I just put that up last night, as a matter of fact. All right.
Awesome.
And if anybody wants to write for it, get in touch with me. I put you to work. Absolutely. Real quick, real fast. All right. Full show. Wow. Full show. Be with us here next week. In the meantime, you know what you got to do. You got to keep us real, you got to keep us live, and you got to keep us going. We'll see you next week.
How satisfying is this for you personally? So many naysayers, so many critics about number 5.
I don't know if it has anything to do with that. It's sad. It's just exciting because this is what you dream of as a football player for your whole life, is playing in this game and winning it. And nobody can ever take that away from us.
How much satisfaction do you get to win another one for Ray Lewis on the last day he puts on a Ravens uniform?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, we're all a team, and he's a very big part of it. And he wanted this just as much or more for us than he did for himself, and that's what makes it special. He wanted us to feel this, and we wanted to make sure that he felt it again.
Joe, on this ride through the postseason, you have not thrown an interception. You've been perfectly efficient. What's been the key?
The key is we're coming together. We got a good offense. Our offensive line really played well. Our receivers just made some plays. I mean, Anquan, Dennis, Torrey, Jacoby, Ed Dixon today. Our backs out of the backfield. So when you come together like that and you have confidence, this is what ends up happening.